All right, hello, boys and girls. It's me, Blind Spiral here, going over playoff, the playoff bracket breakdown and what things could look like for each team, and depending on how these next few games go this week and the following week. So, won't take too long talking about it. I'm going to skip the normal recappy type stuff, um, except for the standings. So, this is what our standings look like currently. Do I need this here? I don't think I. This is what our standings look like currently. So again, not too much changing. The inaugurals and Brownout are jockeying for that place there. The Raggies moved down officially into the toilet bowl area. The Webster Tigers there. So more movement than we've seen these last few weeks, but the top stays the same. The bottom stays the same. And a lot going on in the middle, as is our seems to be our tradition here in most fantasy leagues for that matter, and in this one in particular as well. Let's do this. Let's turn this down a little bit before I get flamed in the chat. Okay, a little better there. But what we're going to do is we're going to break down the best case and worst case scenarios for each team and how they could make this bracket, that bracket, whatever the case may be. There are some teams already locked into certain areas, and we'll talk about that as well. But this is a pretty picture that should show you kind of the best case on the left and the worst case scenarios, highest and lowest possible ranking at the end of the season here for each team in the league. So we have 5 that are locked into the playoff bracket already. And by locked in, I mean there's really 4 that are locked in, but 5 that are probably locked in. The 4 that are 100% locked in are Justin's Deli, Kung Fu Pandas, Implications, and Buffalo Princesses. Brownout is the 5th that should be locked in. We'll talk about what I mean by they should be locked in. That 6th spot is up for grabs. Additionally, Win Like Flynn, the Seawards, and the Liquidators are locked into the toilet bowl. And then everybody else makes up the middle. The inaugurals, Stan Flashes, Webster Tigers, and Radwa Raggy kind of make up those middle spots. So we'll go team by team, talk about what the, again, best and worst case scenario is for them, and we'll start at the top. So Dan Flashes here. Push play. So this one's complicated. They're not all this wordy and complicated, I swear. But Dan Flashes is the first one. Why won't that thing go away at the bottom there? So Dan Flashes, that's going to annoy the hell out of me if this thing won't go away. Hold on, wait for it. There we go, okay. So the best case scenario for Dan Flashes is a 6 seed. The worst case scenario is the 8 seed. But getting to the number 6 seed for them and making it into the playoffs is very, very particular. So Brownout and the inaugurals have been fighting for that position there in the middle of their division. The inaugurals need to end the season lower than Brownout in the standings. Dan Flashes then needs to score 55 points more than the inaugurals over the next 2 weeks. So total points add them up 55.15 points more. But the good news for them is that wins and losses in the next few games do not matter. It literally just comes down to points for them. Doesn't matter about anything else, just the points, nothing else. Worst case scenario is they go 0-4, 1-3, and the Tigers go 4-0. The Brownout can't catch the inaugurals in the standings, and they end at the 6th seed. And the inaugurals with a 55-point head start are able to outscore Dan Flashes. So the 6th seed is based off of total points for. Brownout has a ridiculous points for lead over a lot of teams. Let me pull it up here on this other screen. Brownout currently sitting at 1,887 points for. Dan Flash is at 1,762. There's kind of no way that they're going to be able to score 150 points. It'd be very difficult to score 150 points more than Brownout, whereas the inaugurals are at 1817 to Dan Flash's 1762. So it's reasonable that they could do it, but Brownout has to get higher than the inaugurals, because if it's Dan Flashes against Brownout for the 6th seed, there's no way Dan Flashes catches Brownout. It's going to be very, very difficult too. So Dan has a chance to make the playoffs here based off points alone. If things fall his way, he needs Brownout to start winning and the inaugurals to start losing. He needs to score points. Worst case scenario, he ends up in the extra pick bracket. It is impossible for him to make the toilet bowl bracket. I thought there was a chance he could, but it's actually impossible based off of the schedule of the games that he's being played. Even if he goes 0-4, other teams will do this or that. There's no way he gets down there. It'll be 6, 7, or 8 seed for Dan Flashes. Moving on to the Webster Tigers, we said best possible case is seed 6. The worst case is seed 9. But really, excuse me, I'm sorry, it's 1 in the morning. Best case scenario, seed 6. It's so unlikely. So they would have, it's the same exact thing. The inaugurals have to end lower in the standings than Brownout. And the Tigers would have to score 180 more points in the inaugurals. We've seen these crazy weeks from the Webster Tigers where they have just kind of gone off. So it's not impossible. But 180 points, there's just, it's so unlikely. There is a chance they end up in the toilet bowl if they go 0-4 here. If Brownout can't catch the inaugurals and they end the 6th seed there, it gets sketchy for them just based off the points for, because there's no way that they can catch up to Brownout. And if Raggy beats the Tigers in their game, that would dump them in the toilet bowl. Raggy is trying to win that game because they don't have any picks, so getting into the extra pick bracket for them would be big. This way they can kind of recoup some value of their season really this year. So they're fighting for that extra pick bracket, whereas the Tigers could be fighting for the extra pick in addition to the pick that they already hold for 2024. So it's more than likely a toilet bowl finish. Excuse me, it's more than likely an extra pick bracket finish for the Webster Tigers, but that remains to be seen. I'm going to mute and cough real quick. Oh, what a mess. All right, moving on to the next one. We don't cut these videos, clearly. Raggy. So this is another interesting conundrum for these guys, and what a season for them. The best thing that they can do is end up in the extra pick bracket. It's the 7th seed, or they could end up in the bottom in the toilet bowl bracket at the number 9 seed. So if they win their games and they win out and they beat the Webster Tigers, and the Tigers go 0-4, 1-3, or 2-2, they end at the 7th seed. No difference between the 7th seed and the 8th seed at all. It's just a best of 3, so it doesn't really matter whether you're seed 7 or 8. No advantage there. But if they beat the Tigers, they end up in the extra pick bracket, which they would love to have. If I'm not mistaken, they don't have any picks. He has Code's first round pick, has Dan's second round pick, and nothing else in 2024 or 2025. So making it to the extra pick bracket is the big incentive here for Raggy. If they come in last place, the 9th seed, then they're in a situation where they're playing in the extra pick bracket. And who has his first rounder? The first instinct would be to check Chase. Yep, okay. So Chase does have his first rounder, so Chase could have an incredible first couple picks. If he gets this right, and Raggy ends up in the toilet bowl bracket. But it remains to be seen. Next one, Justin's Deli. So a little funky here. Best and worst case scenario, they're a top 3 seed. They've already locked themselves into the top 3. Again, the top 3 seeds are the top team in each division. So there is no way that they can get knocked out of their top spots. So they're guaranteed to win the division. So they're top 3. Whether they get seed number 1 or 3 remains to be seen, or 2 for that matter. To get the best possible scenario and to get that first seed, they go 4-0. Kangsu Pandas needs to go 3-1 or worse. So really a lot of flexibility with them, just because the Deli holds a tiebreaker. They played a few weeks back. So if the Deli and the Pandas end up with the same record, Deli is above them in the standings, but the implications need to go 0-4 in order for this to happen. So Deli right now is 17-7. The implications are 20-4. So it is possible that they take over the number 1 seed, but it's super unlikely. But they could grab the 2nd seed and get that first round bye if they go ahead and are able to leapfrog the Pandas there. But that remains to be seen. Justin's Deli's matchup. He still has to play the Tigers. I think he has to play, let's see. I can't remember if it's right or not, but he played one of them this week. Let's see. Deli plays Dan Flashes this week, and then Deli plays Raggy next week. So that's why he lost this week. So he does have the, depending on how you view the Tigers, the easier matchup in there with Raggy, and the opposite one with Dan Flashes. So could easily see this going to number 1 seed, but if the Deli cannot catch Kangsu Pandas with the implications in the standings, they'll end the number 3 seed. They'll have their choice of who they play in the first round, because again, the highest seed chooses their playoff opponent. So the Deli in a really good spot, fighting for a bye. is the best case scenario. Getting to choose their opponent in the first round of the playoffs is the worst case scenario. Delhi in a very, very nice spot here. Wrong way. All right, Brownout. Brownouts is a little bit weird as well because there's such a huge variance here. Could end as the 2nd seed, could end as the 6th seed. If Brownout goes 4-0, the Pandas go 0-4, the Delhi goes 0-4, and they're able to outscore the Kangsu Pandas by 28 points for the next 2 weeks here, they take over the number 2 seed. Pretty unlikely, but they'll probably end as the 4 seed, but there is a world where they can go ahead and take over the top spot in the division if everything else kind of goes according to plan, in terms of the Pandas losing, the Delhi losing, and also needing the inaugurals to lose a little bit here and there, but needs the inaugurals to beat the Pandas. Still, it just gets real fuzzy, but there absolutely is a world where they make it through as the number 2 seed, winning their division. The worst case scenario for them is the number 6 seed. So they have scored so many points that it's so unlikely that anybody catches them that would be not already in a playoff position. So they are their biggest competitor or threat for this would be Dan Flashes. Dan Flashes is at 1,762, meaning that he is 125 points away. So if he scored 125 points less than Dan Flashes over the next 2 weeks, then he's out. But then you're looking for Dan to be putting up 220 points 2 weeks back to back, which his team is kind of built to do, but it's so unlikely to happen. Brownout is more than likely locked in at a minimum for the number 6 seed here. The inaugurals is another. Excuse me. Oh, I skipped the Kung Fu Pandas. I can't say that anymore. They beat me. Best case scenario for them, they go 4-0. The implications go 2-2 or worse, and they lock up the number 1 seed. The Pandas do have the tie over the implications, but they are 2 games back. So the Pandas are hoping the implications can lose a game or 2 to lock up number 1 and get choice of who they want to play against. The worst case scenario is they can actually end at the 5 seed. So it's kind of interesting because they can go from 1st place all the way down to 5th place. It really just depends on what happens. If the inaugurals have a good couple games here and Brownout have a good couple games here, then they could get knocked all the way down to the bottom. The inaugurals and Brownout are the next 2 games for the Kangsu Pandas, if I'm not mistaken. They play Brownout in week 14. Just confirming I'm not crazy. And the inaugurals in week 13. So if they have a tough 2 weeks, which they could, and Brownout and inaugurals go 2-0 each, which they should against Win Like Flynn in the median. Sorry, Flynn. There is a world where the Pandas go from 1st place, 2nd place all season, all the way down to the number 5 seed, and kind of get pushed all the way down there, which is an interesting thought. They could actually get pushed down to the 6th seed, couldn't they? If I'm not mistaken with that, I guess they could. They could get pushed to the 6th seed. Hold on. No, they can't. They can't because Brownout has. This scene's actually wrong because Brownout can't catch them even if they have a perfect couple games here. So it is right. The 5 seed is the worst that they could do with Brownout getting the 6th seed there. The Brownouts winning doesn't really matter. It really is just a matter of can the inaugurals go 4-0? Will they lose games? The Pandas lose games, and yeah, that's the story for that one. Moving on to the inaugurals. The best case scenario, this is a fun one. The best case scenario is that they are in the playoffs as the number 2 seed. The worst case scenario, after all the moves and trades and pushes that Cam has made, he ends at the number 7 seed in the extra pick bracket. So in order to get that number 2 spot, the Pandas got to go 1-3 or worse. The Delhi's got to go 2-2 or worse. The inaugural's got to go 4-0. If they can win out their games, they will take the number 2 spot. So it would kick the Pandas out of 1st place. Really difficult to see the Pandas going 1-3. But crazier things have happened. But if they're able to kick the Pandas out of that spot there, they would grab the 2 seed. There's also the chance that they grab the 4 seed, depending on how it goes, and that's kind of the spot that they're in right now, as they're battling with the Diamond Dogs for the 4 seed. But should make the playoffs, should the inaugurals, but there's a chance that they don't. So if they have a rough couple weeks and drop all 4 of their games here, because the inaugurals do play the Pandas, and then they play Win Like Flynn. But if they drop all their games, if Brownout has a really good couple games and Dan Flashes outscores the inaugurals, and they drop, then they could be kicked out. Cam has been very vocal that he's not nervous about his buys this week, but the buys this week are scary for him. He has Kincaid on buy, and he has Darius Slayton on buy, Devontae Adams on buy. So 2 starting players for him are out or on buy. Still no Justin Jefferson, who's supposed to be back next week. So there's a chance that Dan could make a big jump in points this week, and then maybe look to aim to knock him out in the following week. But this one's going to come down to the wire for him. But he snuck in last year and won, so there's that. The implications: the best case scenario is they get the first seed. If they go 3-1 or better, if I win 3 games, I control my own destiny here. It's locked in. It really just depends, since I don't have the tiebreaker over the Pandas. Justin's Deli, it's going to be very difficult for them to catch me, so I should have a bye secured, but it isn't locked in just yet because we have to see what happens with the Deli and my record and what happens with the Pandas. I could fall all the way down to the 5th seed if things go wrong. So if the implications, if I go 2-2 and the Pandas go 4-0, also Justin's, if I go, hold on, I'm getting confused. If the I wrote this too. If the implications go 2-2 or worse, or Canucks Pandas go 4-0, I drop down out of the 1st seed. But if I go 0-4, the Deli go 4-0, and the Diamond Dogs go 4-0, I could get pushed to the 3 seed, the 4 seed. The 4 seed's the lowest that I can go, so that's wrong in the top left corner. So the 4 seed's the lowest I could go. Code and I play in week 14. If I manage to win this week, if I go 2-2 in some capacity and Codes beats me, then it comes down to, well, no, it comes down to points 4 then, doesn't it? There's no way he catches me in points 4. Yeah, so I would have to really lose a couple games here. So Code would have to go. The Buffalo Princesses would, oh, look, it says Diamond Dogs. What a throwback. Have to go 4-0 for the Princesses, and I'd have to lose a couple games in order for him to leapfrog me in the standing. So it's unlikely, but there is a world where the Diamond Dogs go ahead and pick up the division and the higher seed, and let's talk about it. So they could end number 1, but a lot of things have to happen here, and you can see it all on your left-hand side. So they've got to go 4-0. The Princesses have to go 4-0. The implications have to go 1-3 or worse, and he does play me, so there is a world where that happens. The Pandas have to end with the same or worse record as the Buffalo Princesses. They have the same record right now. The Princesses hold that tiebreaker. Justin's Deli needs to end up with a worse record because the Justin's Deli holds that tiebreaker. They are at 17-7, so they are 1 game behind the Princesses. So it really just depends on, can the Princesses go 4-0? Can they beat the implications? And will the implications lose some games? If so, they could end up at the number 1 seed. They could end up at the number 2 seed, the number 3 seed. It's real fuzzy for them. On the opposite end of the spectrum, they could end, worst case scenario, at the number 5 seed. If they lose all their games, the implications have a couple good games. The Inaugurals have some really good games as well. They'll end at the number 5 seed. Brownout can't catch them in the standings, and even if they did, the Princesses hold the tiebreaker. Fun little underrated fact of the day for you: the Buffalo Princesses swept the Division of Death, going 4-0. Didn't realize that until today when I was putting all this together. So I feel like that didn't get noticed very much. So shout out Code and the Princesses for that one, for sure. And then that brings us to the last one we've got here. Win Like Flynn, the Liquidators, and the Seawords are all locked into the toilet bowl. They are all down there. There's nothing they can do at either 4-20 for Flynn, 4-20 for Chase, and 2-22 for Rick and the Seawords. So that kind of does it for what it looks like for the best and worst case scenario. So here's the big picture. So the Kung Su Pandas, Brownout, Justin's Deli, Implications, and the Diamond Dogs are pretty much locked into the grand prize bracket. It really is just a matter of seeing who is going to join them, and that number 6 spot, or as the 6th team. Toilet Bowl, Win Like Flynn, Seawards, and Liquidators are locked in there. The extra pick bracket or the Toilet Bowl still to be decided for the Webster Tigers and for Rutro Raggy, and the grand prize bracket or the extra pick bracket to be decided for Dan Flashes and the Inaugurals. So lots of different options here. Lots of things could happen. A lot of repeats in the same places. In terms of where teams are kind of standing, right? We see the Pandas back in the playoffs. We see the Diamond Dogs back in the playoffs. Brownout back in the playoffs. Probably the Inaugurals back in the playoffs. So those four would be back to back teams. the Webster Tigers possibly being back-to-back in the toilet bowl, the Win Lake Flynn being back-to-back in the toilet bowl. So a lot of Dan right on the edge of the playoff bracket, or the extra pick bracket, like he was last year. So a lot of similarities, but some big differences, the implications, and Justin Stelly with a complete turnaround and flip. The Seawards and the Liquidators were technically fighting in the extra pick bracket last year. They've gone down. Braggie was fighting in the grand prize bracket's gone down. So a lot of things have shaken up from this year to last year. Or last year to this year. That does it for us. I am going to jump off and upload this and all that good stuff. Don't forget the trade deadline live stream is going to start at 9 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, which is today as you guys are hearing this. Really hoping, unless you watch it a day late, really hoping we can get some people on. I've talked to Cam Hoon. He's going to be around, hopefully, for a bit of that. Haven't gotten much more interest in people who are going to be live while we do it. So if we need to just kind of not do it that way, that's totally fine. There will 100% be a room. I'll set it up before I jump off while we're waiting for this to upload. A room in the Discord for us to jump in and talk trades in person. We'll have a couple different rooms in case you need to sneak away. But again, all 12 teams made a trade last year at the trade deadline. Kind of expecting more of the same again today. In terms of trading, there's already been a lot of offers. Cam's made a trade. K Migs made a million trades today across different leagues. I've sent out a bunch of offers, I know, so would expect things to get spicy for sure. Hope to see you guys or talk to you guys tomorrow as we look for some last minute opportunities to build our teams. Again, all of us having something to compete for, whether that's the win, whether that's a higher pick in the toilet bowl, whether that's that extra pick in the bracket. Something for all of us to compete for. So good time to buy, good time to sell tomorrow. Last time we'll be able to do it until after the Super Bowl, so it'll be a dry spell. Hope to see you guys tomorrow. Talk to you soon.